Surprise! Wheelbase video number 4. I thought that was a little bit of a tease to have 3 videos talking about wheelbase and then not to actually skate any of them. So here we go, number 4. I'm gonna skate these 3 setups I have. Today I'm just doing the toy machine and I'm gonna do some flat ground and show you the tricks I like on it. Now, I can only make sort of broad sweeping generalizations as to how this works and what it makes better and what tricks I like better, because of course everybody's different. Everybody likes their setups to feel a certain way, and we wouldn't have so many different varieties if we all liked it the same. But anyways, I'm gonna show you the stuff that I like on this setup, and then later throughout the weekend I'm gonna keep filming on different setups. So here we go, today's the toy machine. So those are more like my regular attempts. You can see the one I did in the line, I kind of got lucky on. So I like it a lot for tricks like backside flips, half cab flips, nollie half cab flips, where the board sort of goes in the opposite direction as the turn, but tricks where you have to scoop, like a frontside flip or a backside heel, I really struggle on this setup. And 360 flips, again, really scoopy, that's why I struggle. So let's try my kryptonite trick, a switch 360 flip. Oh! So I kind of set that one up on purpose because I have landed a few of those on these. And these are some of the first ones I've actually done on the Indy 149s. And for some reason, it's got a blunt tail and it's shallow, and I was still able to do it. And so that defies my logic that I always say, but for some reason I could do them on this board. And I think it's because the shortened wheelbase actually makes the front of the board lighter. When I was trying to do those on the real board that had the larger wheelbase, I kept on not hitting my tail on the ground. And another tip for anybody who's struggling with switch 360 flips, if you're trying to do them on the nose, you've got this big hefty nose that you're trying to scoop around. I'm learning that I do those better on the tail. And so something like a switch hard flip would also work better off the tail because the front of your board has less resistance and drag just because it's shorter. So as you guys can see, I'm not really struggling to get pop on this setup, even though it's 8 1/4. I got 149 standards. The 14 1/4 wheelbase seems to work really nicely. Again, 32 3/4 long, 14 1/4 wheelbase. Seems to be a great combination. It's a touch on the shallow side. It took me a while to get used to it because I like the steeper feel. But now that I've found the timing, it's got great pop. Anyways, I'm almost getting into a toy machine deck review here, so on to the next thing. So this morning we are going to start out on the girl with the Thunders. 14-inch wheelbase with Thunder Team Hollow lights. So the first thing I'm checking is all my basic ollie tricks actually feel pretty decent. So now I'm gonna try some other tricks that I find really weird on a 14-inch wheelbase, which is regular shove-its. So it's not too bad, but they like to over-rotate a tiny bit. So I actually have to not scoop when I'm doing my pop shoves and mostly just focus on pushing down. The height is helping me do my frontside shove-its, and then next I'm going to do all my basic straight tricks like nollie heels, heel flips, kick flips, nollie flips. So it's not bad. I'm finding the pop. The only thing I would say is the pop on the front end of the board is a little bit anemic because it's not quite getting up enough. I'll try a couple more. So some of that's just timing and experience on this deck. I'm sure I could get it with time. Now let's go for the holy grail of a short wheelbase. We'll end the 3 flips on a high note. So I don't mean this in a braggy way at all, but I didn't edit any of those out. I landed every one I tried, and that's actually not typical for me. Usually I kind of struggle with 360 flips, especially as the wheelbase goes up, but shrink them down and I start landing them. So that's the one thing I can say about a short wheelbase is I love them for 360 flips. Now I'm just gonna start doing any old trick that comes to mind, and I'll tell you guys about it when I'm done. If you can't tell, I hate frontside flips on a short wheelbase. Those are harder. My board either wants to under flip or under rotate. Ow! Oh! Ow! Ow! All right, I'm done with this. Let's summarize it. That last trick really hurt. Vans don't have any protection on them and it hit me on the top of the foot. Anyways, let's get into how this felt. So we've got a 14-inch wheelbase on a notoriously flat-feeling brand and giving it the best possible chance with tall trucks and a wide wheelbase on the trucks. And I personally still find it really unmanageable. So no problem for my straight tricks, but I definitely was struggling with all my combination tricks, with the exception of backside flips and nollie half cab flips. Oh, and of course 360 flips. So the switch one was first try, and then I tried about 10 more and missed it. The hard flip was a lucky first try, not to be repeated as you saw. And I could try some other variations, but I just don't really enjoy it and I'm kind of done riding it. On another really quick note though, let's give a positive and a negative. Pop, kind of anemic, but probably very good for manuals. You got that nice balance point. Today I'm gonna start on the Uber flip stick. So this is the crooked board with 14 and 3/8 wheelbase, so pretty wide on the 32 3/4 deck, 31 3/4. And I've got ventures, which increase the wheelbase a whole bunch as well. And they're low, so this is gonna have a very heavy, snappy feel, but it's a very light deck and you don't have to lift it very far before the tail hits. So it's an interesting combination. We rode a lot of decks like this in the 90s. So they had sort of pointy nose and tail. Your nose and tail felt kind of short. You've got the ventures with the wide wheelbase. And everything was sort of low and snappy. So I'm gonna go into the underground as usual and film some flip tricks on this little flip stick. 8 inches wide, by the way. It snowed last night, that's why we're relegated to the underground. So I figure after doing all those tricks on repeat, you guys are starting to pick up what I'm putting down. And that's that not every skateboard is the same. You can skateboard differently on each one. So this one, with these light, responsive, low trucks and this wide wheelbase, was incredibly flippy, incredibly snappy. I mean, this was kind of my home base for doing tricks. And after watching how I can skate this versus some of the other ones, you might be wondering, well, why don't you just ride this setup all the time? And the reason is, I treat skateboards kind of like tools. So if I'm framing, I'm not going to be pounding framing nails with a finishing hammer all day. If I'm finishing, I'm not going to be pounding finishing nails with a framing hammer all day and leave donkey tracks on the wood. So the point is, use the right tool for the right job. So I have other boards because I like the way they feel doing different things. So I'm going to ride a bigger board on transition. I'm going to want a little bit less fingers of flat here, a smaller wheelbase on transition, because having the front feel heavy kind of gets in the way when you're trying to do things like tail slides and all that sort of stuff. Like, it just sort of makes it less responsive in kick turny type situations. So, and if I want to do a lot of flip tricks and sort of small ledge stuff, I might ride this board. But even this isn't going to be my ideal on ledges because the nose and tail are too small and too pointy. I actually like a blunter nose and tail on ledges. I also like a wider board on ledges. It just feels good. The trick is making it light enough to get up there easily. So let's describe these tools real quick. So this is my finishing hammer right here. You know, I can really lay down my flip tricks solidly. Felt really good. This girl deck, well, it's sort of like a Craftsman hammer or a Rona special hammer. Now, it has really good trucks and wheels on it, but it just doesn't perform quite how I like it. 14-inch wheelbase, I can 360 flip easily, but not as nicely as I could on the deluxe board, whatever it was, crooked. So let's get into the next tool. This is a lot more like a framing hammer. I mean, you want to start going into 9-inch boards and long boards, then we're talking sledgehammers. This is kind of my framing hammer. And the one thing I noticed after riding those ventures is I have the wrong trucks on this deck. As soon as I stepped back onto this, the pop felt awful, which isn't surprising, but I got used to it over a few days. So what I am going to do, now again, more tool analogies, is I'm gonna put these trucks, so the Thunders, on this toy machine deck. And so it's sort of like putting the proper blade on the right saw. More tools. Anyways, guys, that's this carpenter's take on skateboards. It's a tool. Choose the right one for the right job. Anyways, I hope this final installment of the Wheelbase series has helped sort of clarify what you can do to help your tricks, right? So some tricks are going to work better with different types of boards. So anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you found this one useful, entertaining, whichever. And who knows what the next one will be.